Hello guys, hope all of you are doing great. I'm Dr. RCB and you're viewing my channel Computer Science with Dr. RCB. This is part 3 of the video series where we have been learning how to build an end-to-end web-based application using PHP MySQL on the server side and CSS, JavaScript and HTML on the client side. As I said, this is part 3 of the video, so obviously there are part 1 and part 2. So in part 1, I gave you the overall description of the project that we are doing here. And in part 2, I created the database that we will be using in this application. So if you have not seen part 1 and part 2 of the video, the link of the playlist is given in the description. So you people can click on that link and you can view those parts. Now let's come to this part. So in this part of the video, we are going to learn how from a PHP program, we can execute some SQL commands. See, in part 2 of the video, I showed you, I discussed about the basic SQL commands, and I also showed you how you can execute SQL commands. But those SQL commands we actually executed from PHP MyAdmin, that is the interface to the SQL database that we have. Here, like see here, you remember this picture. So in part 2, I showed you how you can execute commands from the database server itself. Okay, but that is not the thing that we want to do. What we want is we want from these PHP programs which are maintained by a web server. So from this PHP program, we want to execute some SQL commands, right? So that is the thing that we're going to learn in this part of the video. Okay, guys, then let's begin. Now see, this is the first time that we are writing some code for this application. As you know, we are developing this application from scratch. And this is the first time that we didn't write any PHP code in part 1, any PHP code in part 2. So here we're going to write some PHP code. So for that reason, what you have to do is you have to create some you have to do some initial settings or initial setups. Okay. So let's first do that and then we'll be writing our code. Okay. Then we'll be coming to the point. Okay, guys, clear? Okay, then let's do it. So to do the initial setup, the first thing that you have to do is you have to open Visual Studio Code. You open Visual Studio Code app that you have installed. And then from there, what you do is you click on File. Okay. And then you click on Open Folder option here. Okay. And when you do that, then you browse to this PC, that is my computer. Inside that my computer, you have this C drive. So you go to C drive, and inside C drive, you just look for the folder whose name is XAMPP, XAMPP. Double click on that folder. It means open that folder. Inside that folder, again, you will get another subfolder, which is named as htdocs. See here, these folders like XAMPP and htdocs, these folders will be automatically created as soon as you install XAMPP. Clear? So you don't have to create these folders manually by yourself. So what you have to do is you have to go to C drive, then you have to go to XAMPP folder. Inside that, you have to go to htdocs folder. Okay. And then inside this htdocs folder, you have to create a new folder. And that folder will be the root folder for your application. Let's call this folder, say, SMS, Student Management System. You can basically give any name you want, but to be consistent so that we all are on the same platform, we all are on the same page. So you give the same name as I give it here. Okay. So you give the name as SMS and done. You create the folder and open that particular folder that you just have created. So I created this SMS folder. So I'll be double clicking here, or what you can do is you can select the folder and you can click on this select folder. Done. As soon as you do that, you can see that in Visual Studio Code editor, that particular folder is now open. Clear up to this point? Okay. Now what you do is inside this folder, whatever the code that we write or whatever it is that we do, okay, all the codes, all the files related to this project will be keeping inside this SMS folder. Okay. Now, just to keep the code in an organized way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create here another folder, and you also please do the same thing as I do it here. You create a folder, and how do you create it? See here, there are two plus buttons showing here. The first one is to create a new file, and the second one is to create a new folder. So you click on the second one here to create a new folder. and you call that folder. Say for example, you call it database. Okay, so all the database related code, as the name itself indicates, or you can make a guess, all the database related code will be keeping it here inside this database folder. Done. Now again, you open this folder. Since right now nothing is there actually, so you first select this folder, and inside this folder you click on, like when this folder is selected, you click on this plus button to create a new file inside this folder database. Okay, and create here a file and give the name of the file as database.php. see, this extension is important. See here, if I don't give any extension, you can see the icon is not coming here. But as soon as I give here the extension as .php, you can see this PHP icon is coming here. So this giving the extension as PHP is very much important. Okay, because you see here in this diagram, if you see, the web server basically maintains a set of PHP files, and those files contains some programs which gets executed based on the request sent by the client, right? So these are the files. This is the file we are creating. Actually, we are creating another file called database.php. Clear? Okay, so up to this point things are very much clear. Now let's first write some simple code here and check if our settings or if our setup is right or wrong. Okay, so for that reason, what you have to do is you have to write here some we can write here some, see, this is a PHP file, so we can write here some PHP code. Now before writing PHP code, when you write PHP code, one thing you have to remember, that whenever you are writing PHP code, you have to write the code inside these inside these opening and closing PHP tag. Okay, and that looks something like this, the way I'm writing it here. Clear? Let me make it a bit bigger, the font size. Okay, yeah, okay. I guess it is clearly visible to you people. Okay, now then you write here echo and write inside this, say for example, hello world. We just want to check if everything is fine or not. Okay, so that much only you have to write. Once it is done, you click on file and save. Save option will be there. Yeah, you click on save, or you can see here there is a shortcut here. My auto save option is on actually, so I don't have to save everything explicitly. But if it is not on in your case, so what you have to do is every time you do some change in a file, you have to click on this save button, or this keyboard shortcut you have to press, like Ctrl+S. Clear? Okay, done. Our file is created, and now it means what we did basically here is that inside these, as soon as you create a file inside this root folder, which is again inside this htdocs folder, this file is sort of, you can think of, is created under this web server. Okay, now we should be able to now access that file from a browser. It might be from the internet or might be from the same computer, but from a browser we should be able to access that file, and we should be able to ask the web server to execute that particular file and send the output back to the corresponding browser. What I mean by this is, okay, let's do a checking now. Open a new tab there in your browser, and then you type there localhost and type the name of the root folder. So name of the root folder is SMS. See here, you don't have to type jump/htdocs. You don't have to do that thing. After htdocs, whatever it is, inside htdocs, whatever it is the name of the root folder, you have to type that name here. So since we created the root folder as SMS, I'm typing here SMS and oblique. Then you give the name of the PHP file that you want to access, or that you want the web server to execute. So here our file name is database.php, but it is not directly inside this SMS folder. It is inside this database folder. So I'm writing here SMS/database/, then you write database.php. Clear? And then press enter. Let's see here, as soon as I pressed enter, you can see now hello world is coming on the screen. And what basically, let me zoom in a bit, see here, hello world is coming on the screen. Okay, now what basically it is doing is, see, as soon as we write here SMS oblique database.php, that database.php file is getting executed, and this echo command is basically what this is a function. Actually, this is an inbuilt function in PHP that generates some output for the browser, which will be sent back to the browser. You can think it of like that. You can think like, if you have any experience in C programming, loosely speaking, you can think this echo function as the printf function. Okay, clear? So as a result, you can if you understand like what this echo is doing, it is basically displaying whatever it is that you write within the double quotation. The same thing will be sent back to the browser. So as a result, this string hello world will be sent back to the browser, and as a result, the browser will display hello world on the screen. Up to this point, things are clear. Okay, now our basic setup is done. Now we are ready to go to the the specific point. That what is our point? Our point is that we want from a PHP program, that is, we want from a PHP program like this, we want to execute some SQL commands. Let's see how to do that. Okay, to do that thing, see here, if you want to execute SQL command from a PHP program, then you have to make use of some adapters, okay, or some inbuilt libraries, PHP libraries. And what are those libraries? Don't worry. What you can do is you can do a Google search. Okay, so there are different ways of doing the thing. More specifically saying, there are two ways of doing the things. There are two different types of libraries are there. And one is MySQL, another one is PDO, PHP Data Object. Let's now do a Google search and see. Okay, you type in Google the way I'm typing it here. Say connect to SQL database from PHP, and specifically I want to see what it is there in W3 schools. Okay, so I'm writing here W3 schools. Now, as soon as I do that, you can see PHP MySQL connect to database W3 school. This link should work actually. Okay, so you click here on this link, and you can see, as I said, no, there are two different ways of doing the thing. You can have a read here actually. MySQL extension and PDO, PHP Data Objects. This particular approach will be taking. And should I use MySQL or PDO? The simple answer is whatever you like. Yes, whatever you like. But the thing is that if you use PDO will work with any type of database server, like not only MySQL server, but also, say for example, you are using Microsoft SQL server, then also this PDO will work. However, this MySQL is specifically designed for MySQL database. Okay, these things are written here, so people can if you want to know the details, then you can have a read. You can read them actually. But our main point is, see, you don't have to install anything. You don't need to worry about it. As soon as you install PHP, automatically these adapters or these libraries will be installed. So you don't need to worry about it. And since, as I said, no, we'll be using PDO, so we are interested in actually this particular example. So you people do one thing here. You just copy this example. Let me zoom in a bit if it is not visible for you people. So this particular example I'm talking about. Okay, so you copy this example from here as it is, and then you go and paste it here in this database.php. Let me zoom out a bit so that you can see everything without scrolling here and left and right or up and down. See here, this is this part of the code I just copied from W3 schools, and you also do the same thing. Okay, done. You can use these things as it is, but I'll be organizing them slightly, and you also please do the same thing as I do it here. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to put this part of the code. We'll actually convert this code to a to a class definition, like object-oriented programming class. So if you are not very much familiar with object-oriented programming and what is class, what is object, then don't worry. I'll be using these things quite frequently actually in this series of videos. So automatically, as you see me doing the things, and also when you follow me and when you do the same thing by following me, then automatically you will get more or less the idea about these classes and objects and what is the advantage of using classes and objects. But then also, if you people need a explicit video on these concepts like classes and objects in PHP, then you people let me know it in the comment section. I'd be happy to create a separate video on it. But as far as, since we are like developing an application, so we will not divert or will not distract ourselves with all these different details. Okay, but believe me, things will be very straightforward and simple, so you'll be easily able to follow them. Okay, now having said so, now let's convert this code or put this code inside a class definition. So for that reason, what you do is you write here class and then you give it a name, say database, okay, and this will be your class. Clear? And then what you do is you write there like private, and copy this thing here, copy these things as it is, like this, and copy these, write this word private in front of all of them. Don't worry about that dollar symbol. This dollar symbol is used in PHP. See, PHP is very much similar to C programming language. However, there is one place where it is in terms of syntax it is different. Is whenever you are using a variable in PHP, you'll always write this dollar symbol. Don't worry about this dollar symbol. It is just to indicate that it is a variable in PHP, nothing else. Clear? Okay. Server name, localhost, and this username, let it be username and password right now. And then again, you write another function here, public, and right there, function. Okay, now you create a specific function here. Okay, so use this word public. These private and public, these are called as access specifiers. Don't worry, even if you don't know them, just use them the way I'm using it. And then we are creating here a specific function. That specific function starts with 2 underscores. Okay, you cannot give any arbitrary name to this function. So you give 2 underscores, and then you write here you write here public and then function. First thing is that you have to write this word function, and then you have to give the name of the function. And the name of the function is underscore underscore construct. Okay, so underscore underscore construct. Now this is actually the constructor of the class. It means whenever you are creating an object of this particular class, this particular function will be executed. Okay, and inside this constructor you just copy everything, whatever this try and catch blocks are there, you copy it and you can paste it here. Okay, more or less our code is ready, but we have to do some minor changes here. Now this connection I'm directly writing here. Instead of doing it, you do one thing here, you write here public. Now don't declare this connection as public, because as private, because we will access this particular data member or this particular variable of this class from outside this class. Okay, so for that reason declare it as public and write there CONN. Okay, connection is equal to, for the time being, let it be like a single blank string, no problem with that. Okay, clear? Done. Now when you do that, like if you want to access a data member from inside a class, what you have to do is you have to write this keyword $this and then this arrow symbol. Okay, $this arrow connection. That means what you are saying, that the connection variable of this particular object. Okay, this is a keyword that represents the current object. And this arrow is actually used in PHP to access the data members or the member function of a class. Now don't get confused. Don't confuse this arrow with the pointers that you learned in in C programming language. But this arrow is not that arrow actually. Okay, these are quite straightforward. Whenever you want to access a data member or a member function of a class from an object, then you'll be using this notation of dollar notation of this arrow here. Okay, like you will be using this arrow operator. And then what you do is that I just wanted to rotate myself a bit, just to change the view. Okay, let me do it. This will be more comfortable, I guess, for me. Okay, now what we're doing is new PDO MySQL and then server name. Now see, as I said, server name is a member of the class. So what you do is you're not supposed to write it in this way. So what you do is you write $this arrow server name. Okay, and this DB name. Now DB name is equal to written as MyDB. So instead of doing it this way, what you do is you declare another private member, private, and $DB name, or any name. These are variable names, so you can keep any name that you want. Okay, so DB name is equal to store here the name of the database. I'll come to that point. Let's just let it be a blank string there. Okay, server name is equal to server name, and DB name is equal to you write here, actually DB name is equal to $this arrow, the name of this particular variable, DB name. That's all. So these we copied. Now we're modifying actually whatever the code that we have copied. So this arrow server name, DB name, this arrow DB name, done. And then same thing you have to do with this username and password. I'll I'll tell you what exactly these username and password values should be. But see here, this username actually this variable we have to write here. Okay, so how do you write it? Not simply username, $. See, people already learned actually $arrow this username, and similarly this arrow this password. Right? Clear? So these are the changes you have to do as I did it here. And then connection arrow set attribute. It is not connection arrow set attribute. It is actually this arrow connection arrow set attribute, and these things, let it be like that. We don't need to worry. Echo connected successfully, let it be like that. And cats connection failed, let it be like that. Okay, now this is this constructor function is actually, see here, we have created a class whose name is database, and there we have created 4 private data members. Private data members means what? These data members you cannot access from outside the class. You have to access it only from some functions which are member function of this particular class. Clear? And then we created these public data member, which is CONN. And why did we declare it public? Because in a moment you'll be seeing that we will actually use this particular data member from outside the class. That's why we declared it as public. And then we wrote this constructor, and this is how you write a constructor. Constructor is nothing but it is a function, and that starts with these 2 special symbol underscore, and then the name of the function should be always construct. So whenever you are creating a constructor, whenever you are writing a constructor function for a PHP class, always the name of the function should be underscore construct. Clear? Okay, done. And inside this, and what is the importance of a constructor, and what is a constructor? Basically, a constructor is nothing but it is a specific function. It's a special function that gets executed every time you create an object of a specific class. You will see it in a moment in action. Okay, done. Now public function, we are creating a constructor. We are writing the constructor function, and inside that, within this try and catch block. So if it is try and catch is not clear, don't worry. If people can let me know it in the comment section. Basically, what does this try and catch do is that, like, if anything wrong happens while executing the code which you mentioned inside this try block, then the code it throws an exception. Actually, instead of stopping the execution of the program that point, what it does is that gracefully it just says that, okay, there is something wrong here at this point, but it will not stop the execution of the program. It will throw the execution, or it will transfer the execution of the program to this particular catch block here. This is just like one sentence explanation for this try catch block. But if you again need some explanation and a detailed explanation of this try catch, then you people can let me know it in the comment section. Clear? And one more thing, let me tell you, this part of the code, like this thing, whatever we are writing here, for the entire application, no matter how big that application is, you'll be writing this part of the code only once. So you don't need to worry much about the things that you do here. You can without actually getting into the details, you can write the code as it is, the way I'm writing it here. Clear? Okay, done. So we created the constructor, and then we are calling these inbuilt function. We are actually creating an instance of this inbuilt class PDO, where we have to specify what is the name of the server. Now let's come to this point, like what is the server name? And what I mean by this server name is the name of this server, database server. Now see, if it is installed in the same computer where this web server is there, then the server name will be localhost. In your case, most probably it is installed in the same computer, so you have to keep this server name as localhost. But suppose if it is there, like this database server is installed on a different computer, in that case, you have to write the name of the computer here, or you have to write the IP address of the computer here. Okay? But as long as it is in the same computer, you don't have to do any change here. And again, about this username and password part. So by default, the username for any SQL user account is root, and the password is blank by default. But what you can do is by going into PHP MyAdmin, you can change these username and password. I'll not do that right now, but you can do that actually. So right now we'll stick with this default username and default password. So default username is root, default password is blank. Now what about this DB name? This DB name variable here, we want to store the name of the database. Now see, you remember in our, like if you have seen, that's why I said you that, you see part 2 or part 1 and part 2 of the videos of the playlist. Okay, so in part 2 of the video, we created the database which we'll be using for this application, and we gave a name to that particular database. And what was the name? Okay, let's see it. So you open PHP MyAdmin. Okay, so you can write directly here. You can open it from XAMPP control panel, or you can type in the browser localhost /PHP MyAdmin, the way I'm doing it here. Since it is zoomed in, you are seeing it in this way. So let me zoom out. And then you click here on this database tab. Okay, so in this database tab, you can see that we have created actually this particular database, Student Management System. There's a spelling mistake here actually. Student Management System, that this A is extra. I'm not going to change it right now, so I'll keep this name as it is. So this is the database that we'll be using. Inside this database, we have 2 tables there. Okay, so what we need right now is the name of the database. Okay, so for that reason, what we'll do is we will you can okay, I don't think I'll be able to copy it, so I have to type it. So this is the name that I'll be typing here in this DB name. Okay, so you also do the same thing. System, sorry, what was that? Student Management System. Student Management System. This is the right name actually, but as I said, no, there is a mistake there in the spelling. SYAS I wrote actually. So SYASTEM. So you have to write the database name right here. Whatever it is the name that you gave to your database, the name you have to give here. Okay. And this connection object, you don't have to specify anything right now. We will be creating a connection. Okay. I'll come to that point if it is not clear. Now PDO, here you see the rest of the things are same actually. So DB name, this is the database name. Automatically these values will be taken. You just have to set the values here. That's all. And that's all then. Like our class is ready. Now we have to test this class, whether our class is is proper or not. Okay, so we'll be doing sort of unit testing here. How do we do that? Okay, to test this class, we'll be creating another file here inside this same database folder. I'll create a file here and I'll call it, say for example, test.php. Okay, done. Now inside this, since it's a PHP file and we are going to write some PHP code here, so what I'll do is I'll use this opening and closing. I'll open and close these PHP tags, and inside this PHP tag we'll write some PHP code. Now the next point is we have to make use of this database class. Okay, So how do you do this? For that, now if you have done any C programming, then you know that, like say for example, hash include standard input output dot h, or hash include console input output dot h. Why those those lines you use to include a header file? It means that to include some existing code with our program. Here also more or less the same concept we'll be using, but here it is not hash include. Here it is require once. Okay, or you can use require, or you can use require once. So you can stick with this require once option. Require once, and then you specify here the name of the PHP file that you want to include with this code. So we want to include with this code this database.php file. Okay, so I'll be writing here database.php. Clear? Right? Okay, require once database.php, done. And then as soon as you do that, it means that whatever it is the code which you have written inside database.php, that part of the code is now available here. It means, see here what we have in our database.php, we have this class definition. So we can now create an instance of this class in this test.php file. So if you don't write this line, then that particular class will be unknown from here. Okay, so for that reason we have to write this line here, and then we are now ready. Now since we have included that file, now we can access that class. So how we can do that? First thing that you have to do is this class, as you know, it's just a blueprint actually. So whenever you want to use a class, first thing that you have to do is you have to create an instance of the class, or you have to create an object of the class. So how do you do that? Just declare a variable. And as I said, whenever you're declaring a variable in PHP, no matter whether it is an object variable or it is a normal like integer variable, okay? So you always have to make use of this dollar symbol, like dollar. It means that it is a variable. Okay, so dollar, let's call it say db object, dbo, database object. Okay, you can give any name. It's just a variable name. You can call it say xyz, no problem. I'm keeping it here like dbo, and then you will be writing this keyword new. Okay, new, and then database. Okay, and open and close the parentheses. That's all. So what we're doing is that we are actually here to put the semicolon. Okay, like it is like C programming language. Every instruction you should terminate by writing the semicolon there. So what we're doing here is that we're creating an object of the class database, and from where it is going to know like what is the definition of the class, from this database.php file that you have included in this test.php. Okay, done. Now see here, as I said, now as soon as you create a new instance of a class, automatically the constructor is called, the constructor function is executed. So here now if we simply execute this test.php file, then what will happen is ultimately it will execute this constructor function of this database class, and it will try to make a connection with the database whose name is Student Management System, which is there in the same computer where this web server is there. Okay, and with this credential, like root is the username and password is blank. Done. Okay, then let's now try to execute this test.php and see what comes on the screen, and then we'll get into the details of the things. Clear? Now till now, if you have any doubts or confusion, people please let me know. And I'm moving slowly so that you can follow them, follow these videos, and you also can do the same thing as I do it here. Now see, if you follow everything, whatever I do it here, if you also do the same thing in your computer, then at the end of this video series, you will have exactly the same project that I have here in your computer. And it will give you the confidence that you actually created the project by yourself. Okay, and that way you will learn actually all the details that you need to know to create a project from scratch. And then it will reduce your internet surfing actually. Whenever it is to create a new project, you don't have to search over the internet. Yes, specifically if you need some details about something, then obviously it is a good idea. But overall, like what is the concept of, or how, what are the steps that you need to follow, or how you actually build a project from scratch, that thing you will learn from here. That's guaranteed, sort of. Okay guys, then now let's go to your web browser, and then type here, let me close it, then type here, from here you see SMS database, it is there, database.php. Now we will not call that class like database.php. We will not execute that database.php. What we will rather execute is we'll execute test.php. Let me write here test.php and press enter. Let's see what comes. It shows you that, okay, here you see connected successfully. From where it is coming, you see here, as we know that as soon as we create a new instance of this class database, it will call the constructor function of that class, and inside this constructor function we are trying to make a connection. Okay, and then if the connection is successful, it means if this line is getting executed successfully, if this line is getting executed successfully, then it will come to this particular line, and if this line gets executed successfully, then it will show you this particular line. So if I do any changes here, like say for example, done, say, okay, so that time, if I now see, if your autosave is not on, then you have to actually save every time you do some change in your file. So since my autosave option is on, then I don't have to save it again and again. So if I now refresh my page, you can see done is executed. It means my connection is actually established. From this test.php, there is a connection established with the database server. You can think it that way. Okay, now before actually showing you, like, okay, let me tell you now what this particular line is doing. As soon as I create an instance of this class database, what it is doing is it is making a connection to the database server. So what you can think of is that, now see here, this is a PHP file, PHP program. So it will make a connection to the database server. You can think it of like this actually. It will create a pipe from that program, whatever it is the program. From that program, this connection you can think of as if it is a pipe actually. Okay. Now on this pipe, through this pipe, you can send a command to this database server, SQL command to this database server for execution. This database server will receive the command and it will execute the command, and it will be able to send you back the result through this connection. You can think it that way. So that is the reason, like whenever it is that you want to execute a command, SQL command from a PHP program, then first thing that you have to do is you have to make the connection. Once you make the connection, on that connection you will be able to execute any SQL command basically. Okay, so whatever those SQL commands I showed you in part 2, all of them you'll be able to execute through these or on these specific connection. So the first and foremost thing, like now again let me repeat it. So if you want to execute SQL command from a PHP program, then what you have to do is, first thing you have to do is that you have to establish a connection from the PHP program to the database server. And how do you do that? Yes, for that you just have to actually see if this particular file is there in your application, then the task of creating the connection is only writing this line. Actually, you can achieve it just by writing like this line, like DBO is equal to new database. How? Because you know that, like, as soon as you are creating an instance of this particular class, this constructor will be created, and it will be called, it will be executed, and in turn this constructor will set the value for this connection, and it will make a connection, and that connection will be pointed by this particular data member of this class connection. Okay, and that connection object will use actually to execute some commands in the SQL server. Up to this point, things are clear. Okay, then now it is time now. Okay, what we did is that we have established this connection. Now it is time to actually execute some SQL commands there and check whether things are working or not. Clear? Okay, then let's move to the next next step. We established the connection. Now our goal is to execute some commands in on that particular connection. Okay, then now before proceeding further, let me tell you one thing here. This echo done message here, this one we used only to check if the connection is successfully established or not. Okay, but when you use this connection, if you want to use this connection for executing SQL commands, then there should not be any echo statement here. So for that reason, what I'll do is I'll put this echo statement in this I'll comment that echo statement. Then how we will come to know whether the connection is successful or not? We have to explicitly check the value of this connection. If it is blank, it means the connection is not established. Because see, if the connection is established, then it will have some different value other than this blank string. Okay, so that way we can actually verify. Clear? Okay, done. Now our next step is like, okay, the connection is established. Now let me write some comment here. The first thing is that create a connection. I mean create an object to make a connection to the database. Okay, so that's the thing that you're doing here actually, to the database. Okay, if it is not visible, so let me write it in this way. Clear? Okay, done. Your connection is ready now. And we are again, see here, we are in test.php. So this particular file is not test.php, is not going to be a part of the application that we are building, but this file will be using, or like just to check our, just to do some sort of unit testing. And clear? Okay, done. Okay, now once it is done, now our next goal is now next question should be like how to execute SQL commands. So we learned how to make a connection, now how to execute SQL commands. So for that reason, the first thing is that you have to establish the connection. It is already done. And that on that connection, you have to execute the command. So the first step, now again, execute. Now for this particular problem, okay, how to execute a command. So for that, the first step is, let me write it in this way. Step number A, again, I'll be writing it in comment. Step number A is write the string version of the command. Okay, say for example, what I mean by this is, say let's declare a variable and say call it command, and then there you type the string. What I mean by string version means you just declare here a string. Okay, string means whatever you write within double quotation or single quotation, that is called as a string. Okay, so for that reason, what you do is you just write here a string that represents the command that you want to execute in this server. So for example, we want to execute this command, select star from program underscore details. Now you might be thinking, from where did I know like what is the name of the table and what is the select star is doing? That's why I created that part 2 video. Okay, there I have explained you what is the select star means and what is this program details actually. It is nothing but it is a table there inside the database student management system that we created in part 2 of the video. Okay, so select star from program details. Done. This is the command that we want to execute on the server, on the SQL server. Okay, now before actually executing the command on the SQL server, let me show you here. Okay, like one thing, just hold on. Jump there, you open this thing and go to PHP MyAdmin. This I want actually. Zoomed in a lot, no? Okay, it's not. It should be like this. Okay, now what I did is I just opened PHP MyAdmin. I just want to show you, I wanted to show you what will happen if you execute this particular command directly in PHP MyAdmin. Okay, so let me show you here. So this is student. First select the database and then click on this SQL tab, and there you write the same command that I wrote here. So to make sure that I'm executing the same command, I'm copying it from here and then I'm pasting it here. That will give you the confidence that the command that you are writing is right. If you're getting an output here, it means that the command that you're writing is right actually. Okay, so done. And then you click on this go button. Let's see what happens. As soon as you click on this go button, you can see it is returning you all the rows which are present inside this program details table. There are only 2 rows right now, so those 2 rows are returned. Now the same sort of these output we want actually when we execute the command from the PHP program. Okay, but you have to do here things in a bit different, slightly different way, certainly. Now our command is ready. Like this is the command that we want to execute on the server. And then what is the next thing? The next step is that you have to, the step B is, step B means step B for this particular problem. Step B is that you have to create a statement, create a prepared statement, P-R-E-P-A-R-E-D, prepared statement. These prepared statements are used to, overcome it is, they are used to, okay, let me phrase the sentence in this way. This, when you, okay, what is a prepared statement? Actually, it is a compiled version of the command that you want to execute. Actually, see, for let me give you an analogy, loosely speaking. Suppose you want to execute a C program. What is the first thing that you do? You first write the source code of the program, and then you compile the program, right? Now that compiled program is actually executed, not the actual source code. The same way, this particular command, if you want to execute, first thing is that you have to create a compiled version of this command. Done? Now, and that we call as like create a prepared statement. Okay. Now, how do you create a prepared statement? Done. The steps are quite straightforward. You have to make use of, now that connection object, this particular thing will come into the picture. Okay. So now where this connection object is, now I cannot write here CONN. It is not available here. Like there is no variable here whose name is CONN, but there is a CONN here inside this DBO object. So for that reason, what you do is you write here DBO. That is, inside this DBO object, there should be a connection object. That is this particular object here, okay, or this particular data member there. On that connection object, if you write, there is a function that you can call. That function is prepare. Okay, so as soon as I write prep, automatically this function is coming. So I'm writing here prepare. Then put the semicolon first. Now we want to prepare, or we want to actually create a compiled version of this particular command. So we'll be writing here, okay, prepare a command, prepare a compiled version for this command. Now, if you have any programming experience, even if slight programming experiences, then you might be thinking that what is the need of declaring this string? Actually, we could have directly written here. We could have directly written here the string version, like select star from program details. Yes, it is right. You could have done it directly there. Okay, so that's not a problem. You can directly write the string here, the string version of the command here, or what you can do is, for simplicity or for clarity, you can first create a string that represents the command, and then you can write the name of the variable here. Okay, I'll stick with this approach. Okay, and then this prepare function, actually it returns you, see, prepares a statement for execution. And okay, let me for the time being, let me bring myself here so that you can see something here. See, read the hints here. Prepare a statement for execution and returns a statement object. Okay, it means this particular function returns something. Okay, since it returns something, then what we have to do is we have to store that something somewhere. Since it's a statement object it is returning, let me give it a meaningful name. So I'm calling here, see, I'm calling prepared statement. So I'm calling this I'm storing. So first thing is that I'm creating a variable statement, okay, equal to whatever this function returns, that I'm storing inside this variable statement. And that's why I'm writing here $statement. $statement means I'm declaring here a variable whose name is statement. Now, see, this dollar symbol only says that like it is used only to specify that something is a variable. Okay, done. Now you could have given any, as it is a variable name, you could have given here, you could have written here anything, any valid name. Actually, instead of statement, you could have called it, say for example, y. It will work fine, no problem. Okay, but then also let me give it a meaningful name. Actually, statement, statement. Done. Now whatever this statement, prepared statement, or you can think it of like compiled version of the command, it is now stored inside this statement. Done. Then the next step is like the third step is now execute the command, execute the prepared statement. That's the final step. Actually, now how do you execute the prepared statement? Just, you see here, the statement object is there in this variable, so you have to make use of that variable. If you call it y, you'll be writing here y. Okay, Since it is statement, then arrow. Why arrow? It should give you you should realize that actually what we're doing is we are actually calling. See, this is an object. On that object, we're calling a member function. That's why we're writing here this arrow. And then what we're doing here is we have to call this function called as execute. Okay, execute. That's all. Okay. Now there are different ways of calling this function that will come, that I'll tell you in the coming videos. But to execute this particular command, you don't have to specify here anything. Okay, simply execute, open and closing parenthesis. That's all. Done. Now once you execute the command, so you see here what happens is that when you execute this particular command, like select star from program details, it returns you basically a table. A table is nothing but you can think it of it is an array actually, but ultimate point is that it returns you the result, right? So when you do, like, if this particular line is getting executed, then certainly something will be returned, the content of that particular table. Like, since the command is something like this, then obviously you are expecting that the content of the table will be returned. Then how we can view actually the content of the table, or the returned value, whatever it is returned by executing the command, or whatever it is received by executing the command, or whatever it is the result of the execution of the command, how do you view it? So for that reason, what you have to do is, now this command is executed. Basically, as soon as you write this, the command is executed. Now only the final step is, like, if it is a select command, then we might want to see the result of the execution of the command. But see, for all the other for all the commands, there might not be some results. Like, say for example, you are inserting some records into the database, and certainly you don't expect any result there, right? But if you are writing the command as like selecting something from a table, then certainly there are some results there, right? And you are actually interested in those results. Okay, so step D, let me write it in step D. Then view the result. Okay. So for that reason, what you have to do is, okay, on that statement object, again, the result will be stored in this statement object only. Okay, so for that, what you do is you have to call a function here on that statement object, statement arrow, and fetch all. There is this function fetch all. Okay, again, let me bring myself down here. The fetch all function, what does it do is fetch all. Don't worry about this syntax and all. Just I'm interested to show you. Like, my point is, like, I wanted to show you people this particular line. Fetch says the next row from a result set. This should give you some hints, like what this fetch all is doing. Okay, it basically fetches fetches all the rows returned by a particular command here. Okay, so since it returns you something, then what you have to do is you have to store again it in a variable. So I'm calling, say for example, $RV stands for return value is equal to statement fetch all. Now inside this fetch all, you'll be writing something like PDO colon fetch associative. Okay, this thing actually, fetch associative. Why we need to do this thing is that, like, when this fetch all function gets all the result returned by returned by the execution of this particular function, we want to get those results in the form of an associative array. Now it might be a new thing for you. What is an associative array in PHP? What you can do is you can go to W3 School and then you can have a look. But for the time being, what you can think of is that it is just an array in a tabular format. For the time being, just think it not that way. I'll come to that point actually. Like, what is an associative array? At least okay, I'll come to that point in a moment. Just don't worry. But basically what we're doing is, okay, you will write the thing the way I'm typing it here. Statement arrow fetch all PDO colon fetch associative. It means that we want to retrieve all the rows returned by the execution of this particular command, and those rows we want to store here in this particular variable RV in the form of an associative array. Done. Our result is there in the program. Only final step is now this is a final step, and display the result. Display the result. That's all. How do you display it? Now, see, as I said, now this is an array. Let me bring myself up again. Okay, now if it is an array, this RV is an array actually, and displaying the content of an array is very simple in PHP. Okay, and that is print function, print underscore r. Print underscore r function is used print human readable information about a variable. Specifically, if it is an array, this printer function is quite useful. Okay, so whenever it is an array that you want to print on the screen from a PHP program, then you will be making use of this print r function. Okay, so print r, and what array we want to print? We want to see the content of the array rv. Whatever it is there in rv, whatever it is there in that particular variable rv, we want to see it on the screen. Clear? Okay, done. Now let's first execute this program and see the output. If you see the output, then what this associative array is, it will make some sense to you actually. Okay, then our program is ready. So what we did is that we created a connection by creating an instance of this particular class, and then this is the command that we have to execute, the first step. And then second step is we have to create a prepared statement, and this is how we create the prepared statement. Then you have to execute the command. You have to execute the prepared statement. This is the third statement. Now see, these three steps, like step A, step B, and step C, always you have to take these steps whenever you want to execute a command. Okay, and then whether you want to get the results or not, that depends on the command that you are executing. So if it is a select command, then certainly you have some results. So you can fetch those results by writing this way, by writing the instruction in this way. Or if it is some other commands, then you might not want that actually. So for example, as I said, inserting records into the table, that is, we don't fetch anything from the database. Rather, we are pushing something into the database. So there is no sort of return results there, right? Clear? Okay, done. Now let's see what will be the output of this program if we execute this program. Okay, so for that reason, again, you go to the browser, and then there is just the same file, test.php, we want to execute. So I will be writing this thing, and I will be pressing enter. As soon as I press enter, you can see, okay, let me do it in this way. You can see something is displayed. At the first glance only, it is something, right? Now just give it a clear a bit more a proper look, then you will realize what is that something is that, okay, it is showing me like 0 implies. Okay, stick with me, you will understand it immediately. Now it is showing you that something like let me zoom in a bit if it is not readable. Okay, let me zoom in a bit more. Now 0 implies. Now there's two things here. 0 implies, and then somewhere here you will see 1 implies. Okay, it means there are two elements there in the array, the 0th element and the first element. Okay, 0th element and the first element. Now let me show you here something. There are two rows here in this table. So the 0th element is actually the 0th row, and the first element is actually the first row. Is it so? Let's see it. The 0th element is actually an array, and inside that array, and from where to where that array is, from here to here. Now it's just see what is the content of the array. The content of the array is something like this. ID implies 1, title implies BTech Computer Science and Engineering, code implies CSB, number of semester implies 8, graduation level implies UG, technical level implies BTech, and department ID implies 3. You see here, these are nothing but ID, title, code, number of semester, graduation level, technical level, and department ID. These are nothing but these are the column names of the table, isn't it? ID, title, code, number of semester, graduation level, technical level, and department ID, column names. It's saying that, okay, the first row is ID implies 1, title implies BTech Computer Science and Engineering, code implies CSB, this implies this implies this implies this implies this. That is the first row, right? And the same thing is happening for the second row. Now this is the second row, and what is the second row? Second row is again an array, and there also ID implies 2. Now see here, these are the details of the second row. ID implies 2, title implies mathematics in masters in chemical science, code implies MCS, like that, code implies MCS, like that. Okay, now representing the content in this format, like something implies something. Now key implies value. This is actually like key implies value. Each and every element of the array is actually represented as a key value pair, isn't it? You see here, ID is the key, value is 1. So key implies value, title implies this thing. So if the elements of an array is in this format, like key implies value, then that particular array is called an associative array. So we wanted most of the times, in this application at least, most of the times, whenever we want to, retrieve the result of an SQL command, select command, more specifically, we'll always retrieve them in the form of an associative array. It has quite a lot, it has quite a, lot, it has actually tremendous advantage. You will see it in the coming videos. So, see here, my goal is to tell you, see the same thing you can always do in different ways, okay? But here, anything actually you can hear, whatever I discuss here in this video series, anything, any particular specific thing you pick up, you will be able to do it in many different ways, okay? But I do not want you people to make confused. So what I'll do is I'll always like tell you the most suitable approach. Like suppose you don't want to know all these different ways, you just want to know one particular way that works every time, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm telling you, one specific ways of doing all these different things that works more or less every time. So if you know, one ways of doing the things, then you'll be knowing actually at least one way of completely creating an application. So once you are like sort of used to doing all these things, then you can try different varieties, actually different options there. Okay, clear? So whenever you want to now execute a command, these are the steps that you have to take. Done? Okay. Now let me show you another example. Like say for example, select star from program details. Now it showed you what are the content of program details tables there in the what are the content of that program details table in the database. Okay. Now suppose you want to see what are the content of department details table in the database. And say for the sake of an example, okay, I could have written it here directly, but just for the sake of an example, you want to retrieve the details of the departments from a different PHP file, not from this test.php file. Okay, clear? Just to show you, like how things should be done. Okay, so what I'll do is, say for example, you have another file, call it, say for example, test2.php. Okay, this is a PHP file. And from this PHP program or PHP file, you want to retrieve the content of the department details table in the database. Then how do you do it? Yes. So again, let me do it from the scratch so that you people get the idea. Okay, and got it? Like you will become more familiar. Actually, it's like, see here, more and more you do practice, then more and more you will learn. I could have simply copied this code and I could have simply pasted it here. And also, if when you follow my video, you also can do the same thing. But the thing is that if you seriously want to learn and you do not want to refer to the internet again and again, anything that you want to do, for that you need the help from the internet. So if you want to get rid of that dependency, if you want to reduce the frequency of accessing the internet when you are working on a project, then you should actually, some basic things you have to practice quite a good amount of time. And that way you will be used to doing those things and you'll remember those things, and then you don't need to access that the internet again and again. And certainly that will increase the speed of your development speed actually. Understood? Okay then. So let's do it again. This test2.php, our goal is to retrieve the content of department details table and display it on the screen. Okay, let's do it. You create the since we are writing PHP code, so we have to write it inside these open and close PHP tag. Done. And then what is the first step that we have to do? We want to make a connection. So how do we make a connection? By creating an instance of the database class that we have declared inside this database.php. So it means here also we have to include that database.php file, isn't it? So for that reason, how do you do it? You do it in this way: require once, and then see here again, including a file. There are different ways are there. As I said, I'll be telling you one way which works more or less everywhere. Okay, then once you're familiar with the one specific way, you are used to with one specific way, then you can actually try different ways. Okay, done. Require once. And what is that file that we want to include here? Database.php. Done. Okay, and after that, what is the next step we have to do? Now we are on the track. Like, first thing is that you have to create a connection. Create a connection. Creating a connection is same as creating an instance of this database.php class. So for that reason, declare a variable, call it dbo is equal to new instance of this class database. Done. The next step is to like, we want to execute the command. So first thing is that you have to actually write the string of the command. I'll not like write the comments now, I'll directly write the code. So we have created the connection and then the string version of the command. So command is equal to we want to select everything, or it could be anything, like select, say for example, only the title from department underscore details. Okay, like whatever the connection we have created, on that connection we want to execute this particular command. Done. Now this is just the string version of the command. It is not executable actually. So for that reason, you have to create a compiled version of the command. And how do you do that? For that, you have to create a statement object, actually prepared statement object. Okay, I'm calling it, say for example, statement. Statement is equal to how do you do that? You have to now make use of the connection object, and where that connection object is, it is there in this dbo object. Inside this dbo, there is a variable called connection, conn, whatever the name that you give to this particular data member. So that particular data member here, on that you want to call the function prepare, prepare. Okay, and inside this function you have to specify the string version of the command. That's how you do the thing. Done. Your statement is ready. Now you have to execute the statement. How do you do that? Simple. Statement arrow execute. Done. And this statement arrow execute actually returns you, it doesn't return you anything actually. Okay, that command is executed. Done. Now once it is executed, now we want to retrieve the result of these execution. And how do you do that? By making use of this function. On this executed statement, we want to call the function fetch all. The name you can easily remember, fetching everything, fetch all. Okay, and there, since we want to retrieve them in the form of an associative array, so you'll be writing their pdo associative. Okay, fetch associative, pdo colon, see here, fetch associative. This way you'll be writing, and then all the values which are fetched, okay, which are returned by the execution of this fetch all function, we want to store them in a variable. Say let's call it rv. Done. Then we want to, whatever we want to do with this rv, we can do. Right now we are interested in simply dumping it on the screen, so we'll be calling it, say, print underscore r, print underscore r, and then the name of the variable that you want to display, say $rv. Done. Now we can, our code is ready, then we can execute it. So I don't have to save it, but in your case, if it is not on, then you have to save it. Now suppose it is saved, and then test2.php. As soon as I press enter, you can see 0 implies, that is the first row, title is department of physics. 1 implies title. See, the first row is, in the first row only one column title, in the second row one column title, in third row one column title. Why only one column is being displayed? Because you have written the code that way. Select title from the department details. Suppose you want to see all the columns, then you have to write here star. So in that case, if you execute this file one more time, you'll see all the columns, like ID equal to 1, title equal to that, code equal to this. This is for the first row. 0 implies means this is your first row, 1 implies up to this point is your second row, and this is your third row. Clear? Done. Now this is how you execute a command from a PHP program. You can execute a SQL command from a PHP program. Basics are clear. Okay. Now I just showed you like how to, we are executing commands which are like sort of going in this direction. That is, they are retrieving some they're retrieving some rows from the tables, and they're sending it back to the program, sort of, isn't it? Like in this direction, in this direction we are executing the command, right? But it could have been easily in this direction also. That is, from the program we want to push some record into the database table. From this program we want to push some record into the database table, or into any one of these database table. That is also possible, right? So let's see an example of such type, and then that will be the end of this part of the video. We'll continue in the next part. Okay, so let's do that final thing. So suppose now we want to insert a new row into this program details table. Okay, let's first see what are the content of program details table. Say in program details, a lots of columns are there. Let's do some insertion in department details table. Things are same conceptually, right? Only thing is that, since it is just an example, I'm choosing this particular table. Okay, I just have to specify 3 values here. Had it been like program details, there are like a lot many columns are there. I have to type a lot. Okay, I'm trying to be a bit lazy. And here, suppose right now there are 3 rows there, okay, and we want to execute a command from the PHP program so that it inserts a new record in this particular table. Clear? Okay, then let's see how to do that. Okay, so inside is same thing. Okay, we'll be seeing the content of the department details table after inserting the record into the table. So let this part of the code be there as it is. Now let write. Now we want to insert a new row into the table. Okay, how do you do this? Same thing. First thing is that write the string version of the command and store there the string version of the command. And what is the string version of the command? What is the command that you use to insert a new record into the table? That's why, those are the things that I explained you in part 2 of the video. And that's why I said you that it is important as a programmer to know the commands. You should not always rely upon those graphical user interface. Okay, suppose you know the command. Let me type it. Insert into department underscore details. Insert into this. That is, we want to insert a new record into this particular table. What are the columns that we want to specify? ID value we do not want to specify, because that has been that is actually auto increment column, so we don't specify values explicitly. We'll start with title and we'll start with code. Clear? Done. And what are the values? Explicit values. Let me bring myself here for the time being. And values are like, what is the title? Like, say for example, Department of Electronics. Okay, and the title is code is ECE. So okay, now this is the command that we want to execute. Okay, and then what we do is our command is string version of the command is ready. Then let's see that the steps are again the same thing. Actually, first thing is that you have to create a statement. Let me call it, say, statement is equal to on this DBO. See here, if you want to execute multiple commands, you don't have to create multiple connection. On the same connection, you can actually execute multiple commands, no problem. Like same connection we'll be using. See here, the same connection that we used to use for this particular command, we'll be using the same connection here also. Okay, DBO arrow connection. On this connection, you want to create a compiled version of this particular command. Okay, so you'll be calling this function prepare. You want to get a prepared statement. Actually, prepare this function you want to call more explicitly, more specifically. And what is the command? That command is cmd. That's all. So your prepared statement is ready. Now you have to execute it. Okay, now how do you execute it? So for that, what you do is you just execute it. Okay, like $statement, this statement object. On this statement object, you call execute function. That's all. Okay, now that's all. Like here, we don't have to do like fetch all and display it, because when you insert a new record into the table, it doesn't return you a table. A table is returned, or some rows are returned only when your command is select command. So here up to execute is fine. Now if the command is successfully executed, now this part of the code will show you the newly inserted row into the table. Clear? Done? Okay, then let's execute the program and check it out. So here is our code. Yeah, test.php. Now done. Now let's see whether that new row is coming here or not. See here, ID implies 4. Automatically this fourth row is inserted. Title is Department of Electronics. Code is ECE. Not only here, it will come here also. If I now edit this command, select star from department details, exactly all the departments, whatever it is that we want to see them, then click on go button. Where is the go button? Oh, where is it? Okay, here is it. I click on go and you can see Department of Electronics ECE. This new row is inserted. Clear? Okay. Okay, done. So more or less that much only in this part of the video. But let's just, before finishing here, I have to tell you one very important point, very important point. Okay, so let me finish the video with that important point. That is something that you should know. Okay, now whenever you are, let's now and that point is related, like whenever you are inserting something into a database, or whenever you are executing a command that needs some input from the user, then you have to take some special care. Okay, why? Because there is a specific type of attack there which is possible, very common attack, that is called as SQL injection attack. Okay, now if you it is very important that for that reason actually to take some specific care so that your code is not vulnerable to SQL injection attack. Although I'm talking about attack and all this stuff, vulnerability of code and all, but in reality things are not that difficult actually. Taking that precaution is not that difficult. And what is that precaution? See here, the precaution is that you never specify values in this way in a command. Okay, directly you don't specify any value. Then rather than this example I showed you only like to show you how things works. Okay, but whenever, now see here, this particular command is requiring some input from the user, isn't it? Like what is the name, what is the title of the program, and what is the code of the program. These inputs will come from the user. Don't you believe me? You see here, say for example this particular application. Okay, now you see, suppose I want to insert a new program, right? Now this input, whatever the name I type here, that will go as an input, insert into program details. The title will be whatever it is, this input that the user specifies. As a programmer, you don't specify the input, the user will specify the input. Okay, it means whatever the user types here, it will directly go to this SQL server. And so the SQL injection attack actually takes the advantage of such things. Actually, it means what? Directly the user can actually specify some value here directly that goes to the server and it gets executed there. So in SQL, I'm not going to tell you the details of SQL injection attack here, but if you really want a separate video on SQL injection attack, it will be quite interesting. I'll also find it quite like interesting actually to create a video on it. But if people let me know it in the comment section, I'll get into the details of this SQL injection attack. But for the time being, what you should realize is that this is the way, like whenever the user like gives an input here, this input will directly, as it is, it will go to the SQL server, because this is what you want to insert into the table, isn't it? So obviously it has to be sent from here, from the client side to the server directly as it is. And that actually creates a loophole there. Okay, if you don't take proper precaution, what the client might, or what the attacker might write here is that, okay, the attacker might write something like 1 is equal to 1, some true condition always, or something like that. There are some ways of performing the attack. Okay, then if you have understood more or less the intuition, so the main point is that whatever the user gives as input, that goes to the server. Okay, so those inputs you don't specify. That's the reason that in the program you don't take these inputs, you don't write them directly, or you don't write the name of the variables directly here. Okay, so you might be thinking, okay, what if I do, like, say for example, title t is equal to like this, and dollar code is equal to like this. Okay, put a semicolon, and the title is, say for example, Department of Electronics, and the code is say ECE. What if I do this thing? Sorry, the code is ECE. Okay, and instead of specifying these values, hard-coded value, I write here $T. Sorry, $T, and here I write dollar. What is that? Code. Okay, you can try some approach like this, but this is not the right approach of doing that thing. Okay, that is, these values you don't pass directly to the SQL command. Okay, and that's the reason that we create a compiled version of the command. That is one of the reason. Okay, so what you can do is, instead of writing the command in this way, what you do is that the standard approach of doing the thing is, don't get confused. If you don't understand anything about SQL attack and all this stuff, no need to worry about it. What am I telling you is that the standard approach of executing a command that needs to pass some input to the SQL server. Okay, so the standard approach is that values, you don't specify the values directly here. Rather, what you do is that you create some placeholder here. Okay, placeholder means you'll be writing something like this. One second. What you write here is you create here some placeholder. Actually, you don't directly write here the values, or you don't write here the name of the variables. Rather, you create here some placeholders, and those placeholders are created using these special symbol colon. Okay, you'll be writing colon, and then you create the first placeholder. So the first one is for the title, TITLE. It could be in any order. Okay, then need not follow any specific order. Title, comma, there is another value you want to specify. Yes, they should be in the same order that you specify these values here, certainly, but here they should not be in any particular order. Okay, so the first placeholder is for this one, and the second placeholder is for the code. Okay, now let me tell you one thing here. These are the names of the column, so they must match with the column name in the actual table. Clear? But these are just the name of the placeholders. Okay, this placeholder is with respect, corresponding to this particular column, and this particular placeholder is for this particular column. Okay, but these names of the placeholders, they are just any variable name. It means they need not to be the same. Just to make that thing, like just to show you that thing, I'm writing here not title X, not code X. Okay, but it could be, as you can see here, it is not title, actually it is title X. So if you can write there title X, it should give you the idea that you can basically write there anything. Okay, say for example ABC XYZ. Okay, but again, when you write code, then you give here placeholder names which are very similar to the actual column name, so that you don't get confused which one is for what. Okay, done. Now these two placeholders are created. Now the actual value, from where those actual values will come. Those actual values will come when you execute the command here. When you prepare the command placeholder, when you compile the command, placeholders will work fine. I mean, they will just keep some space there, or you can think like those are some variables whose actual value will be specified when you actually execute the command. Okay, and here is the place where you actually execute the command. So for that reason, you have to specify the values for these placeholders. And how do you specify the values for these placeholders? Yeah, you have to specify them in the form of an associative array. And how do you do that? Just by writing the things within these square brackets. Okay, if you write something within square bracket, it means that you're creating an array. Okay, most probably you might need an explanation on arrays. Okay, so if it is the case, then let me know it in the comments, and I'll create a separate video on arrays. And I'd like to create a separate video on array. I'd like to create a separate video on PHP classes and objects. Okay, so if it is the case, if you're interested, and if I get too many comments on that, then certainly I'd like to do it. Okay, for the time being, what am I saying is that in PHP, if you write something within square bracket, it means that you're creating an array. Okay, now that array we want to be an associative array, and I just told you, like, what is an associative array? Where you specify the elements of the array in the form of key implies values. The same thing you have to do here. So some key implies some values, comma, some key. Okay, let me bring myself back here. Okay, some key implies some values. And what are those keys? How many key value pairs we need? Two placeholders are there, so two key value pairs. So that's why I created two key value pairs. Okay, ultimately there are two elements there in the array. And the first element is this title X. So you can write here title X, or if you want, you can put the colon also. So it's a good idea that you give the colon also. So colon title X, it means against this key, what is the actual value, whatever it is the value for this particular variable. So instead of writing the variable name here directly, you can specify the value, but usually the value will come from a variable name. Okay, so that variable name you specify here, $T. Okay, and then what is the next one? The next one is this. So it's just this key, and the value is from the variable code. Done. Clear? Done. Now that's how you do that. Now if this is how you should execute a SQL command programmatically when that command needs some input. Okay, those inputs you do not specify directly. Rather, you will first create some placeholders, and then when you actually execute the command, that time you in the form of an associative array, you have to specify those values. That is the standard way. And if you follow this approach, then your code will be secure from attacks like SQL injection attacks. Okay, so this is the standard practice. Okay, done. Let's execute this code and check what output comes. Now see here, from here you should realize that, okay, if I execute it, actually it will get an error because already there is a row in the database table which have this code ECE. And if you remember from my part 2 video, that code is actually a unique key constraint is applied on that, on that column. But then also, with knowing that will happen, now let's execute this page and let's see what output comes. Okay. Okay, then let's do it. Okay, this is our test2.php, and then I'm pressing here. You can see fatal error, uncaught PDO exception, and integrity constraint violation, duplicate entry ECE for key code. Okay, so it means there is a problem here. If whenever you're getting some error like this, you should read that error and you should try to get an idea what that error is and why that error is coming actually. So duplicate entry ECE for key code in this particular line of the code and all. Like as I said, no, why that error is coming? Because of the violation of that unique key constraint. Okay, because that code should be unique always. No two rows have the same column. See here, that is the advantage of declaring or putting or applying a unique key constraint on a particular column. Like on the requirement, from the requirement we know that no two rows, no two departments should have the same code. But if we do not have that constraint apply on the database level, then by mistake we might actually insert two rows having the same code. But if you apply that constraint in the database level, then what is the advantage is that even if you by mistake want to do that, it will not allow you that thing to happen. That is the advantage. Okay, that is an advantage. But the thing is that it is showing me an error, like fatal error. How do we handle it? Now see here, it is showing you actually this error is giving you some hints. It is an uncaught PDO exception. The try-catch block, when I said you that try-catch block, I said you about exception, right? I mean, I mentioned at least that word, most probably exception. Exception is something like something unusual happened. And if you think that your code might generate something, it might happen that when you execute the code, something unusual might happen. Usually it happens. Okay, so for example, you're trying to open a file and someone deleted that file and that file doesn't exist, and you're trying to open the file. You're trying to read on a file, write something on a file that really doesn't exist. Okay, or those sort of things might happen. Those are called as exceptional cases. Normally it should not happen. Normally things works fine, but for some other reason it might happen that the intended instruction cannot be carried out by the program. Okay, so that time if you an exception is actually thrown, that time an exceptional case, the program throws an exception. It creates an exceptional situation. So if you handle that exceptional situation properly, then your program doesn't halt suddenly. It doesn't break down at that point. Okay, it just smoothly bypass that situation. But if you do not handle those exceptional situations properly in your code, then it breaks down, like something like this comes on the screen, right? So how do you handle those situations? It's quite simple. Like whenever you think like, okay, this part of the code might generate some exceptional cases, then that part of the code you write inside try-catch block. So try, and then see here a simple thing I'm telling you. Don't worry. I mean, these are quite, once I said you know that, and rest of the times you'll remember it. Then I know that if I execute this particular command, it might happen that for some reason it might throw me some exception. Okay, so that's why I'm writing this particular line inside try cats. So if normally if it happens, then it's fine. This cats block will not be executed. But if it doesn't happen, if it throws some exception, then this part of the code will be executed. And here you have to write something like exception. It is the general object exception dollar. You write here anything. We're not going to use it directly, or yeah, rather you'll be using it whenever you're doing try cats. One specific function is quite useful to know the hints, like why this exceptional situation is happening. Okay, so and that function is say echo, and that function is you can call on this particular object dollar dollar EE arrow get message function, get MES. So it gives you, that readable message, like what is the reason of this exception. So if it is an exception, you want to display the reason of the exception on the screen, and if it is not an exception, it will move smoothly. This particular code will not be executed. This is called as a try cats block. Most probably you learned these things. I'm squeezing it inside the same video because it is a quite straightforward, simple concept. It's just that if you think your code might generate some exceptional situation, it might generate some exception, that time you put it inside try cats block. See here, all the code doesn't generate exception. Say for example, you're trying to store a value in a variable. Certainly that code will never generate any exception. Okay, but whenever it is that you are trying to execute a command, you are trying to open a file, you're trying to connect with the internet, and all these things you're trying to do, where based on some other things it might not work, then that might lead you to some exceptional cases. Okay, so those are things. So that much only I had to tell you. Okay, so let's now execute the same program and see what output it shows us. It shows like, okay, some error message is coming, duplicate entry up to this EC key for key code here. Up to this point, this is coming due to this due to this echo showing the message. Let me put here something. Plus symbol is used for string concatenation in PHP. It might feel like I'm telling you quite a lots of things. Okay, just one more minute and it will be done, I guess. Okay, BR. So BR means break. I mean, see here, what I said is that whatever the output, see here, whenever you are doing a project, certainly you have to know a lots of things. And that's why I'm telling you, these details. Don't feel bored or something. No, if you want to learn something, you have to devote some amount of good time not in the learning process. Once it is done, then you know the things then. Okay, my point is that, see here, what we do is these web server receives some request, and then these programs are executed, and then they generate some output. Those outputs are sent back to the browser. Now, what is a web browser? A web browser is a program that understands HTML. Right, so whatever you give as input to a web browser, it will try to interpret everything as HTML. Okay, and in HTML, a line break is new line. That is a line break is actually, sorry, a line break is this BR tag. Okay, so if you write this BR tag here, it means that along with the output, it will also send this BR tag to the browser. And whenever the browser sees this BR, it means, okay, it will interpret that thing as a new line. So as a result, you can see this message will come as a new line. Again, I execute the program. It's showing me fatal error. Oh, I did a mistake here. See here, this plus is not for string concatenation. This dollar is for string concatenation. Sorry, this dot is for string concatenation. I'm sorry for that. Okay. Sometimes it happens. This plus is in JavaScript or some other programming languages used as a string concatenation, used for string concatenation. But in PHP, if you want to combine two strings together, then you will use this dot symbol, not the plus symbol. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for my mistake. But if I correct my mistake and if I execute this program, you can see this is the error message that this is happened actually. Yeah, this is the reason. An exception happened, and this is the reason for the exception. But rest of the programs is executed actually. See here, although the exception happened here, this part of the code is executed properly, and it is showing you the output. That's the advantage of this try catch block. Clear? Done? Okay guys, then that much only in this part of the video. Just let me do a quick recap and done then. So what are the things that we learned? We learned, like, the first thing, let me again start from the beginning. The main concept that we learned here is that how to execute SQL commands from a PHP program. That's our like one line goal. And how did we do that? The first thing is that we created a database class. Inside that database class, inside the constructor function of that particular class, we created a connection to the database. And we specified these details, like what is the name of the server, what is the username, password, and the name of the database to which we want to make the connection. Those details, we kept it here only once. I mean, the code is written only once. No matter how many times you need a connection, this code will work. And how do we reuse this code? Just say, for example, we have another file like test.php where we want to execute a SQL command. Then what is the first thing that we have to do? We have to create the connection. And for that reason, we'll be creating an instance of that particular class, and then executing the command. It has these following steps. Like, first thing is that you have to write the string version of the command. Then you have to call this prepare function to create a compiled version of the command, and that compiled version of the command you can execute directly. Okay, and then if the command is like select command, then it will also return you something. And how do you get the return value, the output of the command? By using this fetch all function on the executed command. That's all, right? These details I already told you. These are the ways that you can like standard. These are the steps that you have to follow when you want to execute a command. The same example I showed you more or less in this test2.php also. But here I showed you how to execute commands on the other direction. On the other direction means, see, select star from something means it is in this particular direction. But you might want to execute command on this direction also. That is, you might want to insert some records into some of the specific table here, or some of the tables here, right? So on the other direction, if you want to execute some command, then this is how. Say, for example, insert command. Now see, on this other direction, if you're trying to execute a command, usually it happens that it comes with some incoming value, some input from the user. From where those inputs will be coming? Ultimately, those inputs will be coming from the user. These inputs will go to the server. The server will specify the input to this PHP file, and that PHP file will in turn pass this input to the SQL server. So ultimately, these inputs are nothing but these are some user specified values. So this thing actually leaves a scope for a quite common attack actually, and that attack is known as SQL injection attack. And it happens if you directly write the values there, or directly specify the values in the SQL command. So to overcome that problem, a standard way of executing a command that receives input from the user is through these by creating these placeholders. Okay, first thing is that in the actual command you don't specify the values. Only thing is that you create some placeholder there. Okay, and when you actually execute the command, during that time you specify the actual values of those placeholders. And this is how you do that. That is, as many placeholders as you created, that many values you have to specify, and those values you have to specify in the form of an associative array. That is, you have to create an array, and in the form of like key implies value. Each placeholder will be a key, and against that placeholder you have to specify a value. So if you follow this approach of executing a command, then your code will be secure from SQL injection attack. Done. Now again, the final point that I told you is about this try-catch block. Try-catch block is used when you think that your code is going to generate some exceptional, it is going to generate some exception. Okay, so in that case, the part of the code that might generate exception, you will write within the try-catch block. Within the try block, you will write the code that might generate exception, and in the catch block, you will write the the specific part of the code that you want to execute if there is any exception happened in this from inside this try block. Okay. Now, what is the advantage of using try-catch block? It allows a program to gracefully handle a erroneous situation or a exceptional situation. It means if you write them inside these try catch, then the program doesn't stop there. Okay, it goes on. It goes on. Like it goes on. It carries out this execution from that point onwards. Okay. Only thing is that it just deals with the situation a bit more gracefully. That's all. But if you don't include them within this try catch, simply write the command or simply write these instruction, and if any exception happens and you don't handle them properly, then obviously your program will stop execution at that point itself. Clear? So these are the things that I told you in this part of the video. We'll continue from this point in the next part of the video. Okay. So as far as here, since this video might go a bit longer, but the thing is I had to explain you a lots of things. But suppose from the point of view of the project, what part of the code you should be concerned with? Like suppose you only want to type the project. In that case, what you should do? Okay, in that case, up to the creation of these folders, everything is fine. You don't need to type anything in test and test2.php. Only thing that you have to do is you have to create this database.php. This file will only go to the final project. This test2 and test and test2, they will not go to the final project. So that I had to tell you. Okay, so okay guys, then that much only. Hope you people have understood the concept, and if people are if people have followed the steps or whatever it is that I did here, you also you are following it. Actually, you are not finding it difficult to follow. Okay, so in case of any difficulties, you people let me know it in the comment section. Any sort of difficulties you face, you people let me know it in the comment section. Okay. Okay guys, then that much only in this part of the video. See you guys with in the next part of the video. Till then, have a nice day. But before actually leaving this finishing this video, let me tell you one thing. Please subscribe the channel and write comments in the channel. Okay, like the videos. If you really like them, you please press this like button there. Okay, so that will be helpful, quite helpful for me, in fact. Okay, I'll as many subscribers I have, that's a plus point actually for me. Okay, so if you really think my videos are good and it's worth subscribing the channel, then please do not forget to subscribe the channel. Okay guys, then that much only in this part of the video. See you guys with some new content in the next part of the video. Till then, have a nice day.